Listen, How to Read a Book by Mortimer J. Adler and Charles Van Doren, it is not a celebration of reading. It is a confrontation. This explainer is for the self-improving adult who has shelves absolutely full of books, but a quiet, lingering anxiety that all this knowledge isn't actually converting into power. Most of us confuse exposure with acquisition, right? We kind of believe that if we just read enough, we'll magically become wiser. Well, Adler and Van Doren do not flatter that habit. Their standard is brutally simple. You have not read a text just because your eyes happen to reach the final page. You've read it when your judgment has actually been trained. You are turning pages to avoid being changed. Just sit with that idea for a second. You are turning pages to avoid being changed. And it's not because you're lazy. It's because you're incredibly skilled. You know exactly how to underline that one bright sentence and feel super serious while doing it. But what if the way you read is perfectly designed to protect you from the book itself? A soft encounter just lets every page become mere content. A hard encounter, though, that forces it to become your conscience. We constantly confuse the menu for the meal. Think of it like a cooking analogy. Highlighting a passage on a page isn't actual nourishment. It's just reading the description of the food. You can consume language constantly, all day long, and never actually digest the thought behind it. And that is exactly why a highly intelligent reader can remain entirely unchanged for decades. The mind just collects ingredients, but the life keeps cooking the exact same old meal. The real mistake here is reading without ever being answerable to what you read.
All right, let's dive into Section 1, the 4 levels of reading, method before pride.
Right now, your current habit might just be highlighting everything you read. But look, when every single line shines, nothing is actually challenging your worldview. It's really just a protective fog. Adler and Van Doren demand that we practice method matching to cut right through that. So elementary reading is simply decoding the words. Inspectional reading is a fast survey. Analytical reading, that's a slow, deep interrogation. And syntopical reading brings several books together around one single question. A serious reader stops to ask, what kind of book is this? And then chooses the right heat. Because you absolutely cannot undercook a difficult text.
Now, inspectional reading is not cheating. It's literally scouting the terrain before you start marching. You're looking at the title, the preface, the table of contents, the index. You are asking for the map before you blindly wander into the forest. And this prevents that false intimacy of using the wrong lens. A book can seem incredibly hard simply because you entered through the wrong door. You wouldn't judge a knife for not being a bowl of soup, right? So you shouldn't use a novel's lens on a heavy philosophy book. Finding the right category is basically a mercy.
So here's a question. Is your library just an elegant delay system? Self-sabotage in reading often feels highly refined. It's that little voice that says, oh, I already know this, or honestly, this writer is beneath me. But each of those phrases is just protecting the exact same small throne, your unexamined self-image. What if your very refined reading taste is really just fear dressed up in better clothes? It's a delay system keeping you from true understanding. A book can only change you after it gets past your taste. Moving on to Section 2, Finding the Author's Skeleton, Active Interrogation. We're descending into analytical reading now. As Adler and Van Doren say, every serious book has a skeleton hidden between its covers. They insist that structure is completely discoverable. You have to treat the author as a mind with a specific shape that must be interrogated. A reader who merely wants the aura of being serious just looks for a beautiful sentence they can quote later. But a disciplined reader, they shift from a passive mood of what can I take from this to an active strategy of what must I answer. You have to uncover the author's true recipe by breaking down the load-bearing beams. First up, the terms. These are the words under the author's specific rule. You have to define them before you try debating them. Then, the propositions, the actual assertions completely stripped of any stylistic ornament. And finally, the arguments, how those claims actually connect. A beautiful quote is just a slice, but the argument is the whole loaf. You've got to find the recipe. Place the book on a cutting board. Do not place it on an altar in blind reverence. Put it on a cutting board so you can respectfully prepare the text for deep dismantling. You have to delay your ego here. Let another mind speak in its own order first. This is what we call disciplined hospitality. You let the author present their case fully, and only then do you decide whether that order actually deserves your trust. Which brings us to Section 3, Earning the Right to Judge, Freedom After Fairness. Now, this is a harsh rule, but it is a vital one. Disagreement before understanding is not independence. It's just a defensive reflex.
If you can't state the author's central question in one plain, simple sentence, you are not being fair yet, and you definitely haven't earned your freedom to judge. Once you are fair, there are only 3 honest verdicts you can give. 1. I understand and agree. 2. I understand and disagree. Or 3. I understand and I must suspend judgment. Taste alone is never evidence. If you disagree, you have to precisely locate exactly where the argument fails.
The books praised most changed me least. Think about that for a second. So many smart readers stay completely unchanged precisely because they judge too soon, just to protect their identity. They never actually let the book finish its case. But if the books you praise the most change you the least, well, that's not a reading problem. It's a character problem. You are avoiding the exact moment a book becomes right about you.
Let's look at the final section, the anti-vanity practice. 1 book, 1 question, 1 confrontation.
We are shifting entirely away from passive consumption to a rigorous, tangible practice. Here's the final ritual for you. Grab an index card. Write down the author's problem, the answer they provided, their strongest reason, and then at the very bottom, what changed in you. This is the ultimate test. If that what changed section remains blank, do not pretend the book is finished. Your old assumption hasn't lost its authority yet. If you are ready to stop avoiding the hard work, at upgowise.com, deep dive the philosophy. Bring 1 hard book, bring 1 completely honest question, and bring that part of yourself that usually tries to escape into the protective fog of highlighting and accumulating. Adler and Van Doren are giving you the method, but you are the one who has to bring the intellectual honesty. Because ultimately, active reading ends that old bargain where the pages move while your self stays completely still. The page is not simply asking for your attention anymore. It's asking for your surrender. A book is only truly finished when it threatens a habit. Remember, reading ends when surrender begins.